Yeah, right. You better get back to school, little boy.
Ow! Get your ass to jail! Ow! Hey, what the hell are you doing? You can't do that! Ow! 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 Ow!
Sir, it's a red cat.
Fans of Warhammer 40,000, the Psychic Awakening, and the complexities of the lore, thank you very much for joining me for a second video where I'm going to talk about the recently released story, Psychic Awakening Consequences. So this follows on from a video I made a few days ago about the story where I talk about my interpretation of what happened in that and who was and was not in the right there. And you will recall that I was very clearly of the view that the Primaris Marines had been rather naughty Escalates by resisting the arrest order of Shield Captain Tyvar on behalf of the Order Hereticus of the Imperial Inquisition. I do thank you for all your comments and observations on that video. It's really interesting reading them. However, something did become apparent that I thought would be interesting to address in a video of its own, and that is the question of, does a Custodian have the authority to arrest a Space Marine? And by extension, a Primaris Marine, because I read a few comments and I think there is a genuine misconception of what the authority of the Custodes is. And I thought I'd make a video talking about a very specific example in the lore which vividly sets out just how much authority the Custodes have. So I've decided to make this video to talk you through that event, so thereby illustrate what I believe is the most canonical example of just how far-reaching the authority of the Custodians is over any Imperial subject. So that's the aim. So just to recap on the events that we're thinking about, this was Shield Captain Tyvar of the Adeptus Custodes, who was attempting to arrest the Grey Shield Primaris, bound to join the Brazen Claws, and the events happened on the bridge of the Lux Imperatus, and the leader of the Primaris Grey Shields was Captain Geryon. How am I going to address this question of what the Custodian's authority is? Well, I'm going to make reference to a scene from a book from the Horus Heresy series, and this is the First Heretic by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. This is a spoiler video, and I will be discussing a significant event in the plot of the First Heretic. So if you haven't read that book, and you intend to, and you don't want this part of the story spoiling, do not listen to the full video here because I will completely spoil it. So you have been warned. However, what I have got is I have got two key points that summarize the entirety of the argument I'm going to present. So if you fall into that category of not wanting to have the First Heretic spoiled, I present you 2 points. Firstly, there is no technical limit to the reach of the authority of the Adeptus Custodes in protecting the Imperial throne. Even Primarchs are subject to their law in matters of loyalty, treachery, and heresy, and that authority is bestowed to the Custodes directly from the Emperor. However, they do have to act in a pragmatic manner given their very low numbers, and that their reach is limited by their mission to protect the Emperor first and foremost. Second, read The First Heretic. Not only is it an excellent novel, but it also contains amongst the best lore written exploring the relationship between the Adeptus Astartes, or at that time the Legiones Astartes, but the comparison holds true even in 40k, a Primarch and the said Custodians. It's a great book as well, so if you've not read it, it's like, in my view, it's one of the must-reads of 40k history. Spoilers will now commence, so yes, that is your last opportunity not to have The First Heretic spoiled. Okay, so The First Heretic covers key events surrounding how Primarch Lorgar Aurelian was turned to chaos, and by extension his Word-Bearers Legion. I'm going to recount a section of that story set on Cadia, where we get a clear example of the true extent of the authority of the Legiones Custodes, Adeptus Custodes. It's the same thing in terms of their authority. While this story is set at the time of Great Crusade, there's no change in the standing of the Custodes between then and the current M42 story, although obviously in M42 the Custodians' resources are massively diminished compared to their Legio days. Following the destruction of Monarchia and his subjugation before the Emperor, 20 members of the Legio Custodes are assigned to watch over the Urizen and his warriors' conduct in the Great Crusade. This is to ensure they prosecute the campaigns in line with his father's wishes and to abandon their practices of worshipping the Emperor as a god. These Custodes are openly spying on the word-bearers and Lorgar and regularly submit reports back to Terra on their conduct and progress. One of the Custodes is Vendatha, an unranked Custodes. So in other words, he doesn't hold the rank of shield captain, for example. He's just a Custodian. So moving into a section about a third of the way through the book. During the word-bearer's time on Cadia, Lorgar attends a ritual of the local tribes who have promised to reveal the truth of the voices he has been hearing in his head. Partway through the ceremony, the Custodian Vendatha, accompanied by Captain Argel Tal, join the ceremony, and Vendatha is immediately concerned by the heathen practices of the local tribes he sees, and he pretty much arrives at the time when the priestess Ingathel asks Lorgar to provide a 10th human sacrifice, with 9 victims already being impaled and on full view to the assembled Escalates, Primarch and Custodian. Vendatha correctly deduces the ceremony is deeply malign and something they must immediately withdraw from. He makes several protestations to Lorgar to this effect, all of which are ignored. And very specifically, these are Vendatha's words in that exchange. By the authority invested in me by the Emperor of mankind, I do judge thee a traitor to the Imperium. He then proceeds to say, Lorgar, 17th son of the Emperor, do you yield to righteous authority and give your oath to abandon this den of heathen belief? Do you vow to return at once to Terra and submit to the Emperor's judgment? To which Lorgar replies, no, I do not. So very clear, unequivocal language is used by Vendatha at this moment. After Lorgar refuses, Vendatha tries to summon his fellow Custodians as a further 4 present on this fleet via teleport to help him arrest Lorgar in force. However, Lorgar has put a teleport jammer in place and Vendatha is unable to do so and realizes he is on his own, at which point he makes a move to close on Lorgar. 3 of Lorgar's marines leap to his defense, all of which are instantly slain by Vendatha. 3 dead word-bearers in 3 seconds. He then brings his Custodian spear to bear on the Primarch, in no uncertain terms as he threatened him, the Primarch, with physical and probably lethal force. Vendatha challenges again. Lorgar, 17th son of the Emperor, surrender yourself into my custody at once. Lorgar defies him again, and Vendatha issues yet another challenge. Surrender yourself. When Lorgar refuses this 3rd demand, Vendatha moves to shoot him, but the word-bearer Zaphen sees it coming and shoots Vendatha first, rendering him unable to fight. I won't go over the remaining parts of this scene because it doesn't add anything to the argument that I'm making here, but it's very clear and vivid what is being shown here about the Custodians' overall authority to prosecute the Emperor's will, and I summarise it in 3 points. Firstly, all Custodians have the authority to arrest any Imperial servant, up to and including a Primarch. Remember, Vendatha is unranked and acting without his shield captain Aquilon being present. So any Custodian who is serving can exercise its authority. You know, if they say something and you do it because that authority has been gifted directly from the Emperor himself. Any attempt to resist arrest can be met by lethal force being used against the accused and or those trying to defend them. And that's exactly what happens with Lorgar. At no time in the scene does Lorgar challenge Vendatha's authority to arrest him. Something he would certainly have done given he didn't want to come to blows with a companion at that point, and the Urizen's superhuman intellect in matters of law and scripture. So had Vendatha being basically make it up on the spot and get Lorgar to do whatever just because he didn't like what Lorgar was doing, Lorgar would have pointed out to him and said, Vendatha, you act outside of your remit. And he doesn't, because he knows what Vendatha says is true. Vendatha does have the authority to arrest him. And that pretty much concludes my argument. And it's an argument, really. I don't know if I'd even call it an argument. It's a case. It's actually just looking at how the characters behave in universe. And based on that, the Custodians have an absolute authority in protecting the Imperial throne. Very, very clear. Let's go forward just over 10,000 years and think, has the authority of the Custodes changed in M42? Well, I don't think it's changed one bit. They are still tasked to protect the imperial throne by any and all means necessary. They have far fewer resources available to pursue their mission, but the strength of purpose is undiminished. This then brings us back to Shield Captain Tyvar and the attempted arrest of the Primaris Grey Shields on the bridge of a Lux Imperatus in Psychic Awakening Consequences. If an unranked Custodian can detain a Primarch, then a Shield Captain can certainly detain any group of Astartes of any rank. So anyone who has any ambiguities as to whether or not the Custodian was acting lawfully, let's say, well, they clearly were. And the Primaris had absolutely no right or authority to resist Tyvar's order for arrest. Addressing one other point, one other difference we could say between these two examples from the first Heretic and that from Consequences, well, and this concerns the Ordo Hereticus Inquisition. In M42, they are a final authority in acting in matters of treachery, and all Astartes, as all imperial subjects are subject to their judgments. In Consequences, they provide the evidence that compels Tyvar to act, whereas in Vendatha's case, the evidence is what he witnesses with his own eyes. And although it's different, the strength of evidence in the respective context and situations is equal when we think about what would compel or what would trigger a Custodian to arrest another imperial citizen. That's my take on the way the Custodian is written in the story. And it's certainly harsh how they act, but then again, this is Warhammer 40,000. It is not gentle and cuddly. It is a harsh dystopian universe, and if you've read any amount of lore, you'll appreciate the dangers of ignoring potential heresy. You know, they are mortal, lethal, and they can lead to the deaths of billions, if not more. And that's why he acts so harshly. I hope you've enjoyed that analysis and the little thought experiment around trying to establish the limit of a Custodian's authority. I do hope you found it interesting. I'd just like to finish up by thanking everyone who contributed a comment on the other video again. And there are a couple of people who have given me inspiration here. I'm sorry I can't remember you all in person. I had over 150 comments, but I've replied to most people. You'll probably be able to figure out who you are. I'd also just like to thank a friend of mine over on Twitter, Office Painter, for sharing some of his ideas on Custodian lore and background, which helped me shape my ideas for this particular video. As always, I'd like you to comment and share your polite ideas about what we're talking about here. You know, this Psychic Awakening Consequences story, which really is very interesting stuff. I've got an idea for a third video that's going to come out of this as well, although the focus of what I'm talking about on is going to move to a slightly different perspective. So something to look forward to there. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time. And goodbye.
Maybe this would teach you to listen to authority!